Last week, I made a video poking fun at Martin Bashir. Here's a clip.
Jared, what about the job of the president? Does private equity manager Mitt Romney not understand?
Okay, I have much the same problem with that question. What about the job of president does Mitt Romney not understand? Again, how would he know? What personal knowledge does he have on which to base that question? He can't get inside Mitt Romney's head. Unless he's clairvoyant, in which case I'd have a lot better questions for him. By the way, that question is made all the more ridiculous by the guy he's asking, Jared Bernstein. This is the guy, you know what? I think we're going to have to do a separate video just on this panel. Well, this is that video. Let's start with Jared Bernstein. This is the guy who used to be Joe Biden's top economic advisor. And that sounds like an odd job title, but he was probably best known for a report he co-authored with Christina Romer back in 2009. This report, to be exact, it was an assessment of the proposed stimulus package and its anticipated effects. The report included this now infamous graph. As you can see, it projected that without the stimulus plan, the unemployment rate, would soar to 9%. And if the proposed stimulus were enacted, then unemployment would max out at 8%. Well, we passed the stimulus package. President Obama signed it into law. Democrats got what they wanted. And let's take a look at what actually happened. Wow, that's awful. As you can see, with the stimulus in place, the unemployment rate actually broke 10%. It soared to over 10% before coming back down. To this day, the unemployment rate in the U.S. remains above 8%. Now, they came out with a bunch of excuses for why their projections were so miserably off. We were working with data that turned out to be wrong, or it was revised, and things weren't as bad as we thought they were, and a bunch of other excuses that don't really hold water. The thing is, they kept revising their projections about what the unemployment rate would be, and all of them underestimated what unemployment would max out at. In any event, Bernstein is no longer with the Obama administration. He is now affiliated with the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities, which is, how can I describe this? It's not really a think tank. It's really a left-wing group for people who aren't good enough to be part of a real think tank like the Brookings Institution. The CBPB frequently distributes economic policy propaganda under the guise of analysis, and, well, Bernstein seems to be a good fit there. Let's also take a look at something else that got cut out of the video I uploaded last week.
Final question to you, Karen. Do you expect Mitt Romney to ever come out and say anything about Bain? Because apparently for the last 48 hours he's been locked away in a hotel suite talking to people who are planning on funding his campaign. Is he ever going to talk about Bain and address this?
It doesn't appear so, and it's surprising given how many times this has come up.
Ooh, so sorry, Karen. In fact, Romney gave not one, but two in-depth interviews later that week. First, he sat down with Mark Halperin for an interview that will run in Time magazine at some time in June. And then later on last week, I found out that he sat down with none other than Peggy Noonan for an interview that ran in the weekend edition of the Wall Street Journal. In both interviews, Romney discussed his time at Bain and his record in the private sector, though it's clear he's not comfortable bragging about his really impressive achievements from his time as a private equity guy. He did show a willingness to discuss things that the panel on MSNBC you just saw seemed to think he would be uncomfortable talking about. If there is any discomfort in Romney when he discusses these subjects, then I think it's because he's not really comfortable, as I said, bragging about his achievements. He certainly doesn't have anything to be ashamed of from his time at Bain, at least not from what I've seen. Finally, speaking of Romney's career at Bain, there was the matter of this ad, which is run by a pro-Obama super PAC, and the Martin Bashir saw fit to play on TV without an on-air fact check.
I worked at the plant going on 34 years. I thought that I was going to retire. I had about 2.5 years to go. I was suddenly 60 years old. I had no health care. And that's scary. When Mitt Romney did that, he made me sick.
It's a very powerful ad, John.
Well, since I thought that ad called for a fact check and I couldn't find one anywhere on the web, I decided to do one of my own last week. Okay, I guess they're not going to fact check this thing, which is interesting. I couldn't find a fact check of this ad anywhere on the web, not even on Romney's own website. But it wasn't that difficult. Let's take a look at that thing in the ad. Can we freeze frame on that? Citing to an article in the Boston Globe dated January 21st, 2008. So I went to the Boston Globe's website and I found this article that ran in the Boston Globe on January 27th, 2008. As Bain slashed jobs, Romney stayed to side. And it did say creditors forced AMPAD into bankruptcy in early 2000, and hundreds of workers lost jobs during AMPAD's decline. The company this woman worked at was American Pad and Paper, also known as AMPAD. And it did say Bain Capital and its investors, however, had already taken more than $100 million out of the company in debt-financed dividends, management fees, and proceeds from selling shares on public stock exchanges. So where it says they made more than $100 million profit, that is not true. It wasn't all profit. But that big lie was about driving a profitable company into bankruptcy. Do we have that? Yeah. So that is just mendacity of the highest caliber. Here is the very same article. And this is what, in addition to that thing I just read you, this is what the Boston Globe also ran. Jeffrey Reinert, a former Bain partner, said Bain often increased employment to boost the value of the company. In one of its first deals, for example, Bain acquired an Illinois manufacturer of medical diagnostic trailers that travel from hospital to hospital and quickly expanded its national sales force. Sales tripled and employment grew to roughly 150 from 90 in the 27 months that Bain owned it, said Reinert. The profit improvements which Bain companies generated were driven mostly by growth and not slash-and-burn cost-cutting, said Raynert, now co-chief executive at another Boston investment firm, Audax Group. While it wasn't the primary objective, there was actually a very strong record of job creation across Bain Capital's portfolio. So, there it is. The unvarnished truth. Also, this took me about 6 minutes to dig all this up. Who the hell do they have working over at MSNBC that they didn't bother to do a cursory fact check on this ad before they featured and discussed it? And one of the reasons it was so easy is because I blogged about this back in January, the last time all this stuff was coming out and being attacked against Romney. And here's something I found out. That plant that woman Loris worked at, that plant was shut down because of a union strike. Not because of anything Romney did. It was shut down because of a union strike. And Romney actually, according to this Boston Globe article, Romney wanted to intervene, but the firm's lawyers told him not to. And this is interesting. So it was a union strike, and if you want to blame someone, Loris, for losing your job, then you ought to blame the union president at the time, a Randy Johnson. Randy Johnson cost you your job, not Mitt Romney. But this is perhaps the most important thing. AMPAD is still in business. It went bankrupt and it was acquired out of bankruptcy. It's now owned by Esselte. I'm probably mispronouncing that. But they're a Connecticut-based office supplies manufacturer. So, really, this ad was very dishonest. And they didn't even bother to do a fact check on it before they discussed it. Now, to be fair, that same night I saw on Hannity, he and a couple of his guests were discussing an ad. I think it was the basketball ad by Karl Rove's group, Crossroads GPS. However, I didn't spot any factual errors in that ad. So they might have done a fact check and just, not turned up anything. But in the interest of fairness, I felt like I should point that out. I should get to the gym more often. Anyway, that about does it for this video. Do follow me on Twitter, @RightWingGenius. And please go to my blog if you haven't recently. And I'd really like to get some more people commenting on the posts on that blog. So please go there, share it with your friends and colleagues, and of course, follow me on Twitter. Well, I'd say that about does it. Until next time, take care, and don't mess with the right-wing genius.